10 mistakes to avoid when looking to potentially buy a home in today's market. Let's talk about it. What's up, everybody? Reno Reed of the Reed Team with Trotwell Realty in beautiful Kansas City. And today I have 10 mistakes in today's market for you to avoid if you're looking to potentially buy a house. Number one is being too reckless when it comes to your concessions to get your offer accepted. Now, my last video and article, link in the description below, was all about reasons you don't want to be overly aggressive with what you're conceding in your offers. Now, it is a fine line, it is a balancing act, but basically the concept is that we don't want to be in a position where we are putting ourselves at a disadvantage, years down the road, just because we wanted the house in the short term. Number two, assuming every home is priced for negotiating. So on the other side of the real estate proverbial coin of the buyer is the seller. There is a human being on the other end of that table, and they have their own thoughts, their own emotions, their own strategies. So just because it's typically how it's worked in the past, not every single person is going to be willing to negotiate just because, hey, in the past we had some wiggle room. Even if it's been on the market for a while, you do typically have a little bit more leverage, but not every house is priced with the idea that they're going to be negotiating. A lot of people are pricing them lower to try to drive traffic and get a higher price. Not every price is up for negotiating. While yes, some sellers will be willing to negotiate, others will be really stubborn and have no wiggle room. Number three, making a lowball offer. So piggybacking off that last point, let's say for sake of discussion, we're in a position where we can negotiate. You do not want to put these buyers or these sellers off by making a lowball offer. You see a lot of people where they're like, okay, we'll just throw out an offer, and if they say yes, great, we got a good deal. But if you're really interested in the property, I would never recommend doing this, because typically what happens is one of two things. The seller either digs their heels in because they're offended and they're like, hey, we're not moving. No, we are the ones in control of this negotiation. Or, alternatively, if they're just so offended, they aren't going to even look at your other offers. I've seen it happen firsthand. You don't want that to ever happen to you. So, avoid making a lowball offer if you're really serious about it. Number four, not considering selling the home in the future. So the last data I've seen is that the average homeowner sells their house and moves about every 7 years. Sometimes more, sometimes less. So unless this is something that you are 100% adamant that you are going to live here forever, even then, I'd recommend thinking forward about, okay, we might have to sell this in the future. So if this house needs a new roof, if it needs foundation work, things like that, these are things to keep in mind. Just because your house might be affordable today, if you're trying to sell it and you need a new roof, it might not be affordable in the future for you to sell. Be a little forward thinking about it. Number five, overlooking the quality of a home and just looking at the updates. So this one's more oriented around flips, because flips have been really common in this strong housing market where people are just throwing on paint, putting in some new appliances, and they're done. And then the buyers come in, ooh, everything's shiny and pretty. And yeah, that might be the case, but you don't want to neglect the actual bones, the foundation. You have to remember that flips are businesses. So how did they get the property for so low, and why are they selling it for so high? If they got it for so low because there's just a ton of work that needed to be done, they could certainly do it themselves, but sometimes they don't. They kind of overlook the fact that there's some work on the foundation that needs to be done, or there's some work on the roof that needs to be done. Make sure that you're buying quality, not just shiny. Number six, not seeing the potential in a house. Now, depending on your different situation, I understand not wanting to do anything when you get into a place. But for people who are willing to put in a little bit of work, to put in some paint, to redo some floor, some small things like that, looking at some houses that are dated and kind of writing them off, that could be a potentially huge bonus for you. My situation specifically, we bought a house that had wallpaper in every room. We're going to redo the flooring, all that sort of stuff. And it's going to be a great house for us. It's going to look amazing when we're done with it. But not only that, on the forward thinking side, just doing some of that work, that couple tens of thousands of dollars up front, is going to make it to where when we decide to sell it, we're probably going to see close to a six-figure return on that, because the house is amazing quality, has amazing bones, and just needed some updating that'll make it more appealing to a modern buyer. Number seven, buying a house that you're not sold on. Now, today's market's extremely competitive. Talked about it a number of times. So it's not uncommon to see buyers just start throwing out offers and throwing everything against the wall and seeing what sticks. But you want to make sure that you're sold on these houses and that you're not just bidding on them for the sake of bidding on them. These are contracts that you're putting out there. And so if you're not sold on this place as a place that you would potentially want to live, I would argue that you probably shouldn't even be considering putting an offer on it in the first place. Now, not just the perfect place might not exist for you and your criteria. Chances are it doesn't. But you want to make sure it's someplace that you are comfortable with. Number 8, holding out for the perfect home. So on the flip side of that previous point is that people hold out for perfection. Perfection does not exist. I am a firm believer that perfection just doesn't exist, but it's always the goal. It's unattainable, but that's what you're shooting for. And it's the same thing in real estate. If something perfect happens to come along, awesome, go for it. But the chances are it's not going to. Statistically speaking, it's very improbable. So don't be just holding out because you think that something might be coming on the market. Now, if you know something is, then that's one thing. But don't be holding your breath on statistical improbabilities. If something that you like, go for it. If something you're comfortable with, go for it. But don't be holding out hope that the diamond in the rough is going to show up. Number 9, becoming obsessed with the one listing you guys found online. Now, I see this all the time, and I completely understand why. But what we want to avoid doing in the buying process is becoming emotionally attached to these places, because you might not end up with it. But if you become emotionally attached to this property A, right, and you don't get it, when property B comes along, oh, this place is amazing, but it's not A. Or this next place is awesome, it's still not A. If you can, try to avoid becoming emotionally attached to these places. Because if you get it, then that's amazing. But if you don't, you could have a really hard time shaking that out of your head. And then the last one, number 10, passing on a great house because it's early in your search. Now, this one's kind of a bit of a balancing act as well. So if you are just starting your home search and you know that you can't move for a while, that's one thing. But if you are flexible in your moving time and a really great house comes up on the market for you, don't necessarily not put in an offer just because it's early. Yeah, you'll see a lot more houses come on the market. Yeah, there might be something that fits you a little bit better, but finding something in the short term that's an amazing house that you really like, but don't let the only thing stopping you be the fact that it's early in your process. Just because you could find some other house that is amazing for you down the road doesn't mean that you will. If you are looking to buy in the near future, hopefully these tips were very helpful for you. I'd love to help you facilitate that. While you're here, go ahead. Link in the description is my socials. Let's follow, let's connect. Until next time, see you guys later.